Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, the Two Opinionated podcast could really use your help. And it's easy, it's free. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, imdb.com, named us a top 100 podcast. We came in at number 82. That's a big deal because there's 15 million podcasts and growing. So to be named to anybody's top 100 list, pretty big deal for us. And the way you can help is to go to imdb.com, look up the Two Opinionated podcast, and that's it. Just bringing our page up. That traffic really helps us out. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. All we ask is that you subscribe. It's also free, but that really helps us to attract these amazing guests that we keep bringing on the program. And that's it. Two easy ways for you to support us, and we would really appreciate the help. Now let's get to that interview. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Two Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I get one of my favorite actresses, Callan, with me. So welcome, Kay.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks for asking me.
I've been watching you my entire life.
I guess that's true.
I'll tell you, this is the earliest memory I have of you. You made appearances on Barney Miller and
wow.
Fish, which
Right.
was a spinoff, I think, of Barney
Right. Right.
Miller. But my parents loved those shows, and I was probably too young to be watching them, and I don't, really, I probably didn't get the jokes at that time. I was pretty young.
Yeah.
But I remember you being on there because
Wow, that's a lot to remember.
Yeah. Well, and I remember you after MASH.
Yes.
A little bit later than that, you were. I was a big St. Elsewhere fan in the '80s. A lot of people were
Right.
on that.
Right.
I've been a fan of yours for
Right. All the way along. You watch all my shows.
I watched all your shows.
Yeah, that's like when somebody says you're famous, and I say it depends on if you've ever seen me.
Yes.
There's
Well,
lots of things I didn't do.
Bosom Buddies.
Yes, yeah, Tom Hanks. And boy, has he been adorable. I was at some swell party screening for one of his films, I don't know, in the past 2 or 3 years. A group of people, Academy members that I've been in for a while, and I think I'm the only actor in that group, and they're always very kind and nice to me. But then when Tom was being introduced and he's sitting up there on the stage and he says, "And that's Kate Callan, that was my mother, blah, blah, blah." Now those people like me even more.
Well, we don't agree on much, but most of us agree that we like Tom Hanks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He is the nicest, funniest, sweetest guy.
He really
And,
does come across that way.
and on Bosom Buddies, that was really shortly after I came to LA because had been in New York, and my first jobs were, well, my first job was on One Day at a Time for Norman.
Yeah, I've seen those too. You were on a bunch of those.
So I got into with both Norman and with Danny Arnold, and I worked both of those shows. And then, and now what were we just talking about? Oh, and then, and around that time, I got Bosom Buddies, and of course, he and Peter Scolari were the boys in town,
Yep.
and they were very hot, but they were green too.
Yeah.
And so, I was just there, and I was his mother and so forth. And then I remember after that show went off, I was at a friend's house who had directed one of those episodes, and Tom was there. And during that time, when you're on a hot series like that, it's great, but then frequently you can't get arrested afterwards because you're overexposed.
Right.
And it was so interesting. He was like, "We thought it was going to be this way, but it's this way."
Yeah. Yeah, I remember those times because when it came out, everybody was like, "I don't know about that show," but then, like, almost immediately, it was a hit.
Yeah,
it was so well written.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I remember you on One Day at a Time. I didn't watch that one until we got cable in the late '70s, and TBS used to show those on rerun on cable, and I watched those on there because I think your character's name was like Alice or something like that.
It could be. I don't remember, but
yeah.
Boy, you're right. That actually was the first job. It was in '76 that I shot that.
Mm-hmm.
I came out from New York to just kind of see what it was like in LA because New York actors you're going to go to LA, you're going to be here, whatever. And so I came for the summer to see what it was like. And then that was a three show arc. And so that
Yeah.
was like a big deal, but I didn't know that because I was a New York actor and the business is very different in New York than it is here.
Yeah.
And so I was just, and it was great. I was thrilled because my daughters and I used to watch that show all the
Oh
time in
yeah.
New York. And here I was a single mother with three kids, and she was a single mother and so forth. And then I get the job on that show. It was really thrilling.
What was the actor's name that played the maintenance guy? I can't think of
I
it.
was just going to say, and I knew as it started out, my brain was saying, um, he's gonna, I can't think of it right now, but I know we
Yeah,
both
he
know.
was so good. He was so
Yeah,
good.
he was great. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
he
because
was a comedian that I hadn't really known about that people who knew comedians knew.
they knew. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he was really good. But I don't remember him on a lot of stuff after that.
I don't think so, and or before or after. Yeah, but you know what? That was 11 years.
I know.
That was a nice long
It's a
job.
pretty
We
good
pray for a
job.
job like that. I'm still
Well,
praying. I have enough time.
that's right. You
Yeah.
never know
You
what's
never
going to
know.
come
You
around the
don't.
corner.
That's the thing that keeps us going in this business is you just don't know. You cannot commit suicide.
That's right.
Tomorrow something
You
great
never
could.
know. That's right. You
You
got to
don't
hang
know.
in there
Yeah.
because it only takes that one job.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I jumped ahead a bit, Kay. Let me back us up a little bit. What got you into acting? That's such a difficult profession. Why did you want to be an actress?
Oh, because I made that decision before I can remember. I mean, my first appearance was as the baby Jesus and a nativity thing at the Catholic school where my brother and older brother and sister were. And so there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Basically,
And then I
from
was
the time you were born, acting.
exactly, pretty much. I would have been, and my birthday's in January, so I would have been almost a year old. And so then I was in all the school plays, and I grew up watching Betty Grable musicals. My
Yeah.
sister was a big movie fanatic. She's like 9 years older than I, and she was always stuck with babysitting me, so I went to the movies with her all the time. But so and all those Betty Grable musicals, you probably never saw any of them, but many of them, in many of them, she was a singer and a dancer, and you would see her audition and the various things that happened. So I had in my mind kind
Mhm.
of how that worked. But I can't even remember now. I don't think I ever said that was what I was going to do. I just always knew this was what I was going to do. And not that I came from a family of showbiz at all. You know, I was in Dallas, Texas. But when I was in high school, I wrote to many of my MGM idols and
Yeah.
said, how do you become an actor? Not how do you act, but you know, all the things you really need to know is like how to get a job. And every one of those people wrote me back. And
That's
they were
amazing to think about.
well, in those days, you know, it was the studio system, and I think I was writing the second tier people. Like the only name I really remember was Marge Champion. Marge and Gary Champion
Mhm.
were a singing couple in the MGM musicals, and later both became very successful directors. But I remember everybody wrote me back the same thing. And they said, you must do as much as you can do in your hometown, whether that means singing at the Lions Club or, you know, this and just do everything you can do locally before you assault the big center. And so I already was trying to do that. I was one of those kids who did shows in their backyard and
Yeah.
things like that. And so that was just always in my mind. And then I went to college and studied theater right down the road from Dallas. And one day I got a ride home to Dallas because I needed to pick up my new glasses from my sister. And
Yep.
he was doing a show at the Margo Jones Theatre, which was a very famous theater in the round, internationally known. She's credited with discovering Tennessee Williams and
Oh,
William and she had produced on Broadway. And so they were in repertory doing Inherit the Wind. And so I went in because Tommy Jack was rehearsing, and I was just sitting there waiting for my sister to pick me up, and somebody didn't show up. And Margot looked around the darkness and said, are you an actor? And I'm like, yes. And she said, get up there. And so I had no idea what a cool thing it was. I mean, as an actor, you think I would have known about Margot. I knew it was there, but I
right.
didn't understand any part of it. And I thought, and it was really just kind of, get your fans, it was kind of an extra in the crowd and various things. And I was not nervous at all because I thought, there's no way I can do this because I'm still in school and I have to be in the dorm every night at 10 minutes of 11 and it's
Yep.
like an hour drive, etc. But I got up there and then she offered me the job for no pay, of course. And then I went to the Dean of Women to get permission, and she was all excited. Oh, what a great thing. Yes, of course. So anyway, I did that, and then I got to do two more shows there. So I actually had professional experience while I was still in college.
Yeah, and that's so valuable
Oh
because
God,
it
yes.
at least takes away that some of that nervousness when you first get
Yeah,
started.
I think when you're that young, you're too stupid to be nervous. I mean, I just wasn't nervous. Mainly, and I think it served me well in my career. I think we numb out, we're still
Yeah.
walking and talking, but unfortunately, if you numb out for the bad stuff, then you're going to numb out for the good stuff too. So I keep my entire life's goal has been don't numb out, be present. And then when I'm present, I go, what was I thinking? This is not good at all.
I kind of love that because it's so true. And with
Yeah,
anything that you do, if you do it long enough, you do get you just kind of sleepwalk
do it. Yeah,
with that. So
it's
you got to
muscle
fight against
memory.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Those are tell my wife those are career enders usually, or job enders, maybe a better one. Because if you sleepwalk for too long, it's probably going to affect you
yeah,
negatively.
absolutely. And you can't really sleepwalk in my business. You got to be able to have access to your emotions. But anyway, so that was my really beginning. And then that summer when I would normally have had a summer job, I was working at Margo's for free. And then they're dark in August. And so I had a month between that and when school started. And so we had yellow pages in those days. And I thought, I wonder if there are actual agents in Dallas. So I go through the phone book. It's like, yes, there's this agent. And so I got on the bus and I had my little Easter outfit with my gloves. And I went to see Molly O'Day. And I went in, she's this little lady in this big office with pictures all over and just very, very stereotypical office for what we would expect. And I said, hi, I'm Kay and I'm a singer. And she said, do you have an accompanist? And I said, no. And I'd seen all the Betty Grable movies and I thought, and she'll throw me out now. And she said, do you have any music? And I said, no. And I figured, no, she'll throw me out. And she said, wait a minute. And she went down the hall and she came back with an accordion player. And I sang, I'm looking over a four-leaf clover in C, and you made me love you in B flat. And she said, what do you think to $100 a month at Shepherd Air Force Base? And I was like,
It sounds like good money
never,
for back
I
then.
never expected it to get this far, you know? And I said, oh, I don't know whether my daddy would let me. I'm supposed to go back to school. And she said, well, why don't you go home and ask your daddy? And it wasn't until like 25 or 30 years later that I found out she called my dad when I was on the way home and discussed it with him. And so he was like, fine. He wanted to buy a new car. He didn't want to send me back to school. I was the first person in the first generation to go to college anyway. So anyway, then the band leader called me up and said, get a little book and write every song you know and alphabetize it, and then we'll get together. And then we got together and he told me what key I sang everything in.
Yep.
And then we went to Shepherd Air Force Base, which was, and I'm in my little prom dress. I'm this little girl from Catholic school. I've never been anyplace. I've never done anything. And so I'm singing, and acting is one thing, but singing is another. And if you're
Right.
singing from the stage, it's just you're singing it to the audience. But here's these guys. It's a club. They're very close. I'm sure they're having impure thoughts, and I'm too embarrassed to look up. So I'm not a big success. I can really sing. I was a good singer, but it was like, eh. So anyway, at the end of 2 weeks, that was over. But before I left, this nun called me up, who was the principal of the Girls Catholic High School that I had gone to, a new principal. I didn't know
Yeah.
her. But she had heard about me, and since I'd had professional experience at Margot's and I'd had 2 years at college, would I come and teach? They could get me an emergency teaching certificate if I would keep studying. And I'm like, oh no, I'm going to order horses today. And she said, well, we'll just keep the job open. So when I got back, I was too naive to know I could still go to school, even though it was too late. I could have. But
Right.
anyway, so I called Sister Justin and I said, is the job still open? And she said, yes. And then she said, could you also teach girls PE? And I said, yes, because when I was there, girls' PE was just some parent who came and stood and threw you a ball and watched you, And I'd had skill courses by then and I knew how to do stuff. So I said yes. And so I started teaching school and it was some of the best years of my life. I loved
Love
that
that.
so much. I loved my kids so much. I built a theater. I I knew a guy who was over at Jesuit who was 2 years ahead of me, who I had called over there to see if they had some lights to send us. And he came over and we became this kind of power couple. Together we built a theater in the round at school.
Wow.
It was magnificent. We did so many things. And then ultimately we were just pals and ultimately we became more and then we got married and then we had kids and then we got divorced and then I went to New York.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It was.
I love that you taught. And do you still do some like acting coaching?
Well, I don't do acting coaching, but I have a series of books. If you
That's
may have
it.
read
Yeah.
about my books, and I see them as an extension of teaching, and it's not about acting; it's about how to get work as an actor, writer, and director, how to be entrepreneurial, how to be your own first agent, things
Like
like that.
stuff you actually need if you're wanting to get started.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not things that are not taught in school. Although they've been taught more because a lot of my books have been used in NYU and UCLA and places like that, which made me very happy and continues to.
We've got a local theater here. My wife's on the board. It's just
Oh,
down the street from our studio. But they've got one of your books on their in their
oh
library
wow.
down there. Yeah, I wrote down it's how do you sell yourself,
How
I
to
think.
Sell Yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the best book. The two other books that have to do with acting are the New York Agent book and the LA Agent book. But I consider How to Sell Yourself a really invaluable book. Every time I go back and read it, I go, oh yeah, that's right. And there's so many things about the business that nobody would think to tell you. And it is so hard. And it's really important for people to know how hard it is and that other people go, why am I here?
Right.
And now, of course, there's the avenue of all the fabulous actor biographies that they read themselves. You can listen to their
Right.
stories. Viola Davis's book is just, oh my God, you can't believe what she went through. And even though they're awfully full of themselves, and you have to stop and do this every once in a while, Matthew McConaughey and Will Smith's books are really good books to talk about the
I've heard
business
that.
and career planning and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So there are other avenues now. And so now I'm thinking, since I don't really update my book, I did do a new How to Sell Yourself a couple of years ago. But now I just have to get myself going on it. If you go to my web page, kcallan.com,
Yeah.
you'll see that there's a picture. It says K. Callan in her books. And I originally had that for my books, even though I had other stuff on there. But now, since I'm not updating the book so much, I need to change it. But what I've decided I want to do now is I would like to go up, if I can inspire myself to do it. Periodically, I would like to make videos that are the stuff that's in the books
Oh,
so
you
that
should.
I'm
Yeah,
talking.
that's a great idea.
And I think it's a great idea, and I think people would really love it. And because I know how helpful my books are. People come up all the time and compliment me on my work, but when they come up and say, I read your book and your book really helped me, that just means everything. That I'm the first one who ever wrote a book like that, and I'm so proud of all that. And I do like teaching. A couple of years ago, I was on Poker Face,
Oh yeah,
with
I remember watching that. Yeah.
and so in that, the writer came up to me beforehand, and the character is described as a busybody. And so he and I were talking, and I said, a busybody does not think they are a
That's
busybody.
right.
They think they're just helping people.
Yeah.
And so we talked about that, and then I decided I think I am a busybody. I really like to help people. I really do it. I really get something out of it. It's very rewarding. And so, anyway, I look forward to I first thought when I had this idea, I went on iMovie and I started recording myself talking, and then I was like, oh, this is really hard. I'm gonna have to go back and look at the book. I'm gonna have to be organized. I can't just talk like you and I are talking now.
Right. Yeah, you got to have it all kind of laid out.
Yeah,
But I think
yeah,
that's a great idea.
yeah. I
That would
do
help
want
a
to do
lot of
that.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. My dad was an educator. You know, he's retired now. He's been retired for, almost 25 years, but he started as a social studies teacher and a basketball coach and eventually moved into administration, was a principal for most of my life.
Wow.
So I kind of grew up with around that educating system. And I thought about doing the teaching route, but that really wasn't me. But I've
Yeah.
always been kind of in roles where I'm training or I'm passing on information, that type
Yeah.
of thing. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
There's some definite satisfaction that comes from helping others.
Yeah, yeah. I think, that's just a big period, big thing. And I know we all go through periods of our lives where you're depressed or
Yeah,
whatever.
of
And I
course.
just remember it's like the best way to get out of depression is to help somebody else. To say, what's up with you? And then to go help somebody else. Because it gets you out of yourself.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
we can choose what we think about. We can dwell on this or we can dwell on that. And when you're helping someone else, it invigorates a part of yourself and an energy that's very alive.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with that because you can be really down, depressed, and then get the opportunity to help somebody and like actually experience how much it helped them, and then all of a sudden you feel better.
Yeah.
You know,
You've energized yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask you a question because I keep thinking of this, and it's been too long, so I don't know that it's right. But
Yeah.
I remember when ER, Chicago Hope, they came out about the same time, and it was kind of a battle there at the beginning on which one was going to be the show that took off. Well, you were on both of them, but am I crazy or did you play the same character on both of them? Is that
No, 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 no. And I was really pissed off because I didn't get on ER until the very last show. And
Oh,
there were
was it
lots of
that long?
parts
Yeah, I don't remember that.
there were lots of parts I could have had along the way, and I'm like, why am I not on this? No, in ER, I was a I was a patient, yes, but I was fighting with the patient in the next bed. We had some backstory I don't remember. And in Chicago Hope, I had some something last bromas, some disease I can't pronounce.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so it's a whole different thing. But you brought that up. It's really interesting because have you seen the new show, The Pit?
Oh, I love the pit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it so much. I cry every time.
Oh, I know.
It's
I know.
acting is so good.
Noah's so good as
He's
a doctor.
And when I started watching it, then I went online to look for a link to send to someone to say you should watch this. And then I ended up seeing this wonderful thing on YouTube about the pit and how all those actors had to go to doctor school for a week.
Oh, really?
And you should look at it because it's really
I
interesting. And
will.
they talk about what they showed and what they learned because it's a whole different thing from ER because of the teaching stuff. And oh, there's that girl on there I just hate. She's such a villain.
Isn't she?
Yeah, she's really good.
Well, I love Noah's work, and so I was excited to see him back, as a doctor. But it takes place in Pittsburgh, which is a couple hours away from me. So,
Well, my
but
son lives in Pittsburgh, so I
oh,
kept thinking,
yeah,
and of course they shoot there, but I know they're casting out of New York for that because that's closer.
yeah, right, right. But I
Yeah,
like West Virginia's in the process of trying to do that. As well as get the taxes down low enough so
yeah,
people start filming here and stuff.
yeah,
But we haven't quite got there yet. So
yeah,
for us, Pittsburgh's kind of the closest.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing, I hope you'll look at that thing about the doctor school. I then stumbled on one about Noah that was just wonderful. He is the most interesting guy, and he talks about his time on ER and how I think somehow he had traveled to like some African country on his own. And then he came back and talked about, and then they did an episode about the doctors going there and doing some work. Anyway, he just seems like the best individual. He's an animal rights person. He has like a place with a lot of room out in the country, and he
Yeah.
takes animals in. And I mean,
He's just a good guy.
he's a good guy. And it shows on screen.
I interviewed an actress that had worked with him on another show.
Oh, yeah.
And during the filming, she she passed out. I don't remember why, but something was the matter. She passed out. And so when she woke up, she was just guest starring on his show. He was kind of administering to her. He's checking her pulse, doing it.
Right.
And in her head, she's thinking, it's I got the doctor looking at me.
Right, exactly. I remember when I was doing that episode of ER, George Clooney and company were gone then. I don't know who the male star was.
Yeah.
But that guy had such charisma.
Oh, it might have been, did he have dark hair? Was it Goran?
Maybe, I don't know, but I just know whatever he wanted. I was just like, I've never experienced that kind of charisma, and I've just never been gaga over anybody. But I mean, you could just feel that, it was quite an experience.
I love that because we've all had that where you run into that person that just affects you. You don't know why.
Well, the other one is I'm thinking it's like, yes, I did. I worked with Andre Brower on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Love Andre.
It was a very fun scene anyway. So he and Andy Samberg.
Adam Sandberg. Yeah.
Adam Sandberg.
Yeah.
Had come to my house because my son was somebody that they had some conflict with.
Yeah.
And so they needed his laptop for something. So they were going to come and try and distract me and get the laptop.
Okay.
And so they were disguised as from the gas company. It was so funny.
Oh, I know this episode. Yeah, I just rewatched that not too long ago.
Right. So, he and I are going to have this thing, right? And so when he turned to me and started it was just like, oh.
So that was Andre that was doing that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He's such a good. I loved him on the Homicide.
That's everything. Well, he's since passed,
I know.
Yeah.
I had Reed Diamond that was on Homicide with him not too long after he passed, and he was just talking about the effect it had on some people because he was so loved.
Yeah. Well, it's a great gift that I got to work with him and experience him. Yeah. But he does have that kind of energy when he turns around and shoots it on you.
Got some gravitas.
Yeah. More gravitas. No, it's like it's like
a charisma, I guess, is what you're
big time charisma. It's like, do whatever I say.
So I spent the 90s. I was a comic book store owner.
Oh, wow, you've done everything.
Yeah, that's how I put myself through college. I had a couple of stores, and I always regretted. Marvel. People forget Marvel went bankrupt in the mid 90s, and I thought it was over. So I got out of the business. I always regretted that because it never. My son came after that, so we missed that opportunity. But that kind of, I think, was the driving force for doing the podcast because we never got to do that.
Wow.
I bring that up because, of course, you're Martha Kent to us.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was another treat, another big gift.
I mean, what a show. Still, in my opinion, the best Superman show we've had. It was so.
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's so well done. Yeah, and we've had a lot of great Martha Kents over time, but you are our favorite. That's when we think of Ma Kent, it's you.
Well, that's because of Deborah Joy and her vision. And I remember actually Eddie and I were just supposed to be in the pilot.
Oh, really?
But then that tested so well. But the thing is, when I was going in for the audition, I couldn't figure out how to dress because in in the original script, we didn't get to shoot it because we ran out of money. But originally, you would have discovered Martha welding. You would have just seen this person welding with this hat on, and then it would
Oh,
have been this, and you would have
yeah.
found Martha. So it was like, normally you would think I'm going in for Martha Kent. I need a little flowered blouse. I need my
Right.
hair back and all this. And so I'm the day of, I'm thinking, how shall I go? I don't think, and this and that. And then I call my agent's office, which was really stupid because they're just salesmen. And I say, what do you think? And it's only the assistant. Anyway, it was just stupid. And then I get off the phone and I say, you know what to do. And I go in and I put on sweats and I go in my sweats, and there's everybody else, and there's everybody else in their little flower everything, and I'm like, oh my God! But then I found out later that as soon as Deborah Joy saw me come in like that, it was like a done deal because she knew I got it, and really,
Love that.
I've only had two parts in my whole life, well, maybe a third one because I have something coming out soon that just really had my name on them.
Yeah.
I'm really that person. I didn't have to do anything. I have enough fabric in my house. I could make his outfit. And so anyway, that was just great. And Dean was wonderful and Terry was wonderful. Most of my stuff was with the two of them. And what a great experience. And then I hadn't seen Dean since then until a couple of years ago. I did a Comic-Con in Metropolis. No, not in Metropolis. I did Chiller in New Jersey, and
Oh,
Dean was there, and we were in adjacent booths, and it was just like yesterday. It was just great.
oh, I love that. I love it. Does he call you mom?
No, no.
No, that was always such a fun time because back then we didn't have a ton of comic book stuff. It's not like today where
Yeah,
every week something's dropping and stuff. So it
right.
was, it was neat when we got to see that, and I
Yeah.
love that show because the Superman stuff was pretty good, but
It
it
was
was
written
actually the
so
stuff.
well.
Yeah, it was the other stuff that was so good.
Yeah.
The non Superman part of
But
it.
see, that was what ultimately killed it, I think, because um, we had we did 4 seasons and we were supposed to do a fifth. And they had told the writers, well, first of all, at the end of the second season, Deborah Joy left because the network by that time really didn't care about all the other stuff.
Right.
All they cared about was stunt casting and the stunts. So the rest of us was just, noise as far as they were
Right.
concerned. So she left, and then they stopped writing for Eddie and I. Then we were just,
You're
parents, and
just
they would
there.
write.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't care. They didn't care. And so anyway, what was I going to? Oh, so they told the writers you can do anything you want, but you can't get them married.
Oh,
So then the writers had come up with what they thought was a really good idea, and it was not, which was the clone wedding, where
yep.
Carrie had been cloned.
Yes.
And my son was watching it at the time. He and his friends all watched it, I guess, at college. But it went on too long that he didn't know. And then when she was Lois again, she didn't remember that she knew him. And he said, that nobody wanted to go through that again.
Yeah.
And our ratings just boom, that was the end of it.
Yeah.
And so our
They thought
ratings
they had a really good idea, and it actually kind
it
of
backfired.
ended the
It
show.
backfired. And it's on many shows, they have that thing, Moonlighting had it and so
Yes.
forth. Are they going to get together? Are they not? If everybody's waiting for them to get together and they get together, then the show's over.
Yeah.
You have to find some other way to deal with
Well,
it.
you see that all the time, and it's as a fan, sometimes it can be a little frustrating because it's the will they, won't they type of thing. You're like, just do it.
Yeah.
But then once
And then
they
it'll be
do,
over.
it kind of ends the show.
Yeah. Well, but you get, it's so hard, I think, writing for these things. You had a great idea and you can go on to the second season but then it begins to wilt unless you have such fabulous stories as they have on many things. I
Right.
think, for instance, on the morning show, which I love,
I do too. Yeah.
they've had like each season a whole kind of reset. This one was the topics, and Me Too was the first season.
Right.
And the second season, last season was like Musk, right?
It was. Yep.
and then who knows for the next season. So they're able to take a fresh approach and still keep us really invigorated. But when they still have to mind the same stuff all the time, I think it's really hard. And it's hard for them to keep us engrossed. Some people do it and they do it really well. And they could go on forever as
Well,
far as
that's
I know.
it. Well, and today, outside of some of the network shows, most shows only run 8, 10, 13 episodes instead of 22 or 26 like they used to. So it's a little easier to extend those seasons out a little bit because
Well,
you're not.
those start off as mini series where they're usually telling a particular story. Um, but the thing is, another part of this, besides how the whole process of distribution has changed, the other part of it is that some actors, I would be happy to engage for 15 years. It's fine with me. But some don't want that.
Right.
They have movie careers and things they want to do. So if they only have to sign up for 10, which is still a lot, or 8, which is still a lot over whatever period of time, that it's easier for people to commit.
Yeah, you can do both. Where
Yeah.
back through the 80s, 90s, 70s, you didn't cross over really. You're either a
Well,
movie
you
star or a
couldn't, you
TV star.
couldn't, but even once it became that you could, it was harder. But now it's all interchangeable. I just hate it. I mean, there are aspects of it that I love, but it's like all these streamers I have, and this is cable
I
over
know.
here.
Too
And I
much.
like cable's business model better because you can look and you've saved things and you know this, and these are the ones you picked out and you'll get back to. These other just flying off someplace.
Yeah,
If you
right.
don't binge them all at the beginning, and if they take a real long time off, you may just forget about them all
Yeah, and
altogether.
you end up missing stuff. I know. I know. I like the days when you only got to see one episode a week. And if you missed it, you're just out of luck unless you maybe
Right,
caught it in summer reruns.
right, right. Well, the good old days. What
The
can I
good
say?
old. That's right. That's right. But okay, I know we gotta wrap up pretty soon. But I gotta mention Knives Out. Loved you on that.
It was
That
such a great gift, wonderful gift to do
what a
that.
movie. And it
Yeah,
they're still making those.
yeah. A new
First one's still
franchise.
my
It's great.
favorite.
Yeah, it's great. It was the first one of anything. The first exposure to any story is
Yeah.
usually the most potent. And then it'll be good, but that was the time. I
That's
remember Breaking Bad and watching Breaking Bad, knowing nothing
right.
about it, and just going, oh, by the way, did you see Emily Perez,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
film? See,
And yeah.
I saw that knowing nothing about it. And it was such a great experience because you're watching, and then there is that moment where you go,
Yeah, I made that, and I'll give my wife credit on that one because that was one she wanted to watch. I was, I didn't know what it was about,
yeah. Another good
but
one
that
that
helped me.
I bet you haven't seen is Better Man.
Wait a minute, is that Ted Danson?
No, Better Man is a musical biopic about Robbie Williams, who I didn't know who that was. He's
Ooh.
Australian, and the one where I'm even seeing the monkey picture.
Yes. Yeah. No, I
I
have
thought I
not
wasn't
seen
going.
it.
Well, you haven't seen it?
No, I haven't seen that one.
See,
No.
I thought that's going to be too weird, and it was one of the most creative things I've ever seen. I just thought it
All
was
right, I'll
awesome.
check it out. Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah,
Seeing that one out, I'll go back and take a look at it. And
yeah,
that sounds like something my wife would care for, like too. So
yeah. I'm sure she would. I'm
yeah.
sure she would. It's really great.
Oh, and you got to do an episode of The Chosen. That was kind of a nice surprise.
Yes, yes. Well, there's a story about that. Um, Dallas Jenkins, who
Yeah.
is I call him the white Tyler Perry. He's got that energy. He created something from nothing that nobody had ever done
Yeah.
before. And years ago, I was in his first feature film, 25 years ago. I did the short film that he did to raise the money, and then I was in the longer film. And so there's nobody on The Chosen who looks like me. And all this time, and we've been in touch, over these
Yeah.
years because I knew he and his wife and fabulous family. And then, uh, and then he called for that. which was great. And they gave me brown eyes, and everything. And I did the accent. And so, yeah, I was what another gift to get to do that
I
and
was
to,
surprised that you showed up on there, but that was pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, very excited about that. And it was a fun part. The oldest woman in the Bible,
Yeah,
who's
yeah,
mentioned anyway.
yeah. It was a little different than we get about 80 years now or so. Back then they lived a little longer
Yeah, and had a baby.
and had a baby. Could you imagine?
Yeah. Have you followed The Chosen? You watch it then, the whole
Oh yeah,
thing?
yeah.
I find the writing and the acting to be just superb.
So good.
He
It's
he
so
writes it so well. There are two shows I can think of that just knocked me out. One was The Walking on the Water
Oh, I don't
when
think I've seen that one.
it's right after
Oh
the
no, the episode. Yes,
the
yeah,
episode,
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
episode, and that the whole drama between he and Peter believing and not believing and so forth. And then the episode where Jesus comes home to Mary and he announces, that the time has come. And the thing is, she's so happy. She's like any other mother. Let me get your best food. Let me
Right.
get so forth. And he says, your time has come. And then it was just like, and I just started crying. And I was the writing is just so
Oh,
great.
it's excellent. My grandfather was a Baptist minister, so I grew up kind of around the church, and he would have enjoyed
Yeah,
those
yeah.
because it's so well done, and it's pretty faithful to the Bible. It stays
It's
pretty.
really faithful. They
Yeah,
have
he
all
does
these
a really good
biblical
job.
scholars. But what I love is that his concept was, what was it like being Jesus day to day?
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's the one where Peter's wife is pregnant
Oh, yeah, that was a
and
good.
Peter's always off with Jesus. And how can she be mad? Because it's Jesus,
That's
but she
Jesus.
wants him home. I mean, these everyday dilemmas. I just love these things are written into it. It's so great.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. It was a good friend of mine suggested that I start watching because I saw they came out and I was like, I don't know.
Exactly what one would think.
Right, but then I kept hearing more and more about it, and finally checked it out. Love it. One of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Yes, so good. Well, Kay, thank you for taking a little bit of time. This has
Oh,
been the
Heather.
best. I couldn't wait to talk to you. I told you, you've been around doing this my whole life.
Well, this has been a wonderful time. I just love talking to you. It was lots of fun.
Oh, thank you so much. So,
It's
so
nice to
come
have somebody who's seeing so much stuff, and then we can talk about it, and we're really talking about
I
it.
know, I know. I always have told my family that I've got all this useless knowledge in my head. I was like, what am I going to use this for? But then I started podcasting. I was like, oh, this was it.
This was it. Just been waiting for it.
I've been waiting my whole life just for this.
Yeah, congratulations.
Kay, anything that you're working on that we can keep an eye out for?
Yes, I have a film coming out in the spring called Sew Like You're Sewing a Dress So Torn.
Yeah.
And if you go online and you go sewtorn.com, you'll get the short movie that our movie was based on.
Oh, okay.
That short movie, our director was a senior in school. He's from America, lives in California, but they were living in Switzerland because of his father's work for 4 or 5 years. And while he was a senior in high school, he'd been making films since he was a little boy. His father in the business. And so he made this film as his audition to get into AFI. And
Oh,
they don't take people from high school into AFI, but they did take him on the basis of this film. And also, the Coen brothers saw the film.
yep.
One of them invited Freddie to lunch, took him to lunch, and
Wow.
Freddie ended up with the Coen brothers agents at UTA, and he's been kind of a mentor. And so then that was the first film, but I met Freddie on his thesis, his senior film at AFI,
Yeah.
which I was in, and for which he won a Student Academy Award. And then out of that, they asked me to do their long version of So Torn, and I got to go to Switzerland and shoot that. And it's a thriller with comedy, and it's very interesting. And you can see the short film, and then if you just go to YouTube and do So Torn the long movie or some version
Yeah.
of that, you'll see previews of that. And it's going to open in the spring. And it's
Okay.
really fun. It's really fun.
Well, I can't wait to see that. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Um,
Yeah.
are you on social media? Where can we find you there?
I am on social media. As you know, my name is K, just the letter, and Callan.
Yeah.
But YouTube does not approve. It will not take K space Callan. I was not going to write Kay. I was not going to put a period. So if you go online, I'm Knoperiod, Callan. K no period Callan, or K Callan, K Callan. K Callan as the first name and K Callan as the last
I
name.
like that. Yeah, that one
Yeah.
I kind of like.
So I have both of those, both of those. But K Callan is a more broad one. But
Yeah.
mostly I only go on when I'm like promoting something
Right.
because God knows I don't want to get
You
in
get sucked in.
trouble.
Yeah, you get sucked in. All right, Kay, hold on one second. Kay Callan, such a huge fan. I mean, she's done so much. I absolutely love her as an actress. I think she's so talented. Talked about most of what I wanted to get to. She was in American Gigolo, if you can believe that. Frankie and Johnny, I loved her in. She mentioned Poker Face. She's done Veep. I loved her as Judy on Veep. Um, Desperate Housewives. She made an appearance. NYPD Blue. Coach. I meant to bring up Coach because she played Mary and she was in about half a dozen of those. And she was on Dallas. We've had some of the stars from Dallas. She was terrific on there as well. And she mentioned Moonlighting. She was on there on an episode of that. Rhoda, All in the Family. She's been on just about all of them from back then. She's amazing. If you're finding us for the first time, our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Please subscribe. Really helps us out. Our website's meistercon.com. You can find 918 episodes and counting, audio and video versions. So please check out our website, meistercon.com. Thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody.